It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. Joining me today is Erik Luhrs. Erik is called the Bruce Lee of sales and lead generation, which I want to get into a little bit later. And he's the founder of Gurus Selling and author of the book Be Do Sale, How to Create More Sales Right Now, regardless of what the competition or the economy is doing, using the Gurus, which is an acronym we'll get into, selling system. So Erik Luhrs, welcome to Accelerate.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for having me.
So take a minute, introduce yourself beyond that in-depth introduction I provided.
Well, you did such an awesome job. I don't know if I can do any better.
How'd you get in sales?
How did I get in sales? I was a salesman in high school.
In high school?
Yes, I wasn't selling cars, but I worked, at the mall at different stores. I did retail and everything else like that. At 17, I worked for Champs Sporting Goods, and I broke the all-day sales record in about an hour. I remember my boss was all ecstatic and calling his boss and his boss and his boss, and I did it like from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning. He was all happy, and my reward for selling, I can't even remember, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 worth of merchandise in an hour was, which was like unheard of, right? Because this is 1986, 1987, something like that. So selling that much equipment out of a sporting goods store in a mall, we weren't even in sporting goods, it was like clothing and apparel and stuff like that. It was like unheard of. And my reward for that was an extra 10 minutes of lunch.
Good on you. You did a great job. Get that extra 10 minutes of lunch. Fantastic.
Back then, I had no idea. Now I realize he probably made some huge bonus off
I'm sure
it. Right?
He did.
And I got an extra 10 minutes at Blimpie. So I did that, and then I went through college, and then came out and got into the business world, and spent 10 years in corporate America. And even when you're in management and you're managing people, it's all sales, right? You got to sell people on doing stuff. And I got to the point where I was selling teams of unmotivated, unhappy people to do things that were mathematically impossible given the amount of people I had. So after doing that, I did some consulting, then I did some business coaching, and I really wanted to help my clients. So, when you're doing general business coaching, you're kind of all over the place. It's a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of operations, a little bit of personal coaching, of listening to them cry about
Exactly.
their relationship with their kid. And, there was a lot of meandering and not a lot of helping. So I started to focus more in on sales and marketing, and then temporarily put more of a focus on sales, because it was like, let's make the cash register ring. And that's how I got focused into sales. And then that focus led me into lead generation. Because what comes before sales, lead generation, and then ultimately what comes before lead generation, positioning, which is, so now I really play in, even though I help companies with sales, I really play in the positioning and lead gen space, because you do that right and sales take care of themselves.
All right. So how did you become Bruce Lee?
Well, if only I was that good. How did I become Bruce Lee? So this is going back years, 5-6 years ago. I was talking with a client. So I've studied martial arts for a good chunk of my life. And if you're somebody who knows martial arts, long story short, what happens is most martial arts schools is they teach you forms and katas. They want everybody on the floor doing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time, exactly the same way. Why? Because it makes it really easy for the teacher to stand there and go, oh, yes, you're all doing it right. Why? Because you're all doing a front punch now and a back kick there. And oh, yes, and everybody looks great. Bruce Lee, on the other hand, came in and was like, he trained the same way, do this, do that, do this, do that. But when he went to when he got into a real fight one time using Wing Chun, which was the system he studied, he said, it took like 4 or 5 minutes for this whole fight to happen. He's like, this is ridiculous. It shouldn't take nearly that long. And it's because he became trapped in what he called the classical mess, which is this follows that follows this. And he realized that when you do that, you start to restrict the body, you start to restrict the flow of how, your body has a certain way that it wants to defend itself, be in a fight. And then there's what you're trying to make the body do. Some of the stuff works for you, some of it doesn't, but it's all slammed together and you have no choice. So he instead he created a concept where he said, I'll use what's useful and discard what's useless. And he only started using the techniques that made sense to him. He got rid of forms, he got rid of all this other stuff. Long story short, I start reading this stuff when I'm studying martial arts, and I fall in love with the idea. I'm like, yeah, because there's a lot of times I'm doing katas and stuff in class, and some of it feels natural, and some of it feels like I would never do this in the real world. And so I start kind of tweaking what I'm doing, and my teachers keep going, Erik, do it that way, do it that way. I'm like, ah. So that's why I started getting. I started breaking away from my old teachers and just kind of training more on my own and with friends and stuff. So I loved Bruce's methodology, and when I got into coaching people, he has tons and tons of really good quotes that apply. They were written around martial arts, but in reality, they apply to anything. In a lot of ways, they apply to sales, business, marketing. So one day I'm on the phone with one of my clients, and I'm just going Bruce Lee quote crazy on him. There's this quote and that quote, this quote and that quote, da 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 da. Bruce said this, and Bruce said that. Da, da, da. I was just on a Bruce kick that day. And halfway through the call or something, he goes, you're like a Bruce Lee of sales. And I heard it, and it was like one of those golden moments when it's like, yeah, and I instantly said no. Why? Because I was terrified, because I said, to go out there and brazenly say, I am the Bruce Lee of anything, it was like, I can't, and I actually sat on that moniker for a year. I was terrified to use it. It was sitting there like every day. It was sitting on a piece of paper stuck to my wall, like Bruce Lee of sales, Bruce Lee of sales, Bruce Lee of sales. And finally, I remember when I started using it, put it up on LinkedIn, and all of a sudden I started getting people contacting me like, I got to talk to you, I've got to talk to the Bruce Lee of sales. And then as I morphed from sales into lead generation, I stuck lead generation on there because just like Bruce, if you're going to be like Bruce, then you have to be like Bruce. And Bruce was always evolving. So that's my thing now, is constant evolution. So I guess I got the moniker from a client and the way of doing things from the man himself.
All right. Well, just don't die young.
I'm already, 14 years older than he was.
Okay. Well, good. So. You escaped that then. That's great. So talk then about how you took this this background you had in martial arts, and I could see where you're going in terms of eliminating the parts of the process that didn't really work, mm-hmm. and how that sort of melded into starting what you called your Gurus selling system.
So with Gurus, as you said, it's an abbreviation or I guess acronym. I
right.
was not that good at English, so I always forget what words mean. Acronym. So Guru stands for G stands for genuine self. The first U stands for unique sales persona. The R stands for rapport building. The second U stands for unique buying position, and S stands for sales ally. So the idea behind Gurus originally was very much around the salesperson themselves, the individual. So G, genuine self, was that you meet a lot of salespeople who put on an act because they think that's how you're supposed to sell. Hi, Chip. Nice to meet you. Can I help you today? What are you looking for? Can I,
hearty handshake?
Exactly. Blood in the water. And you start to feel icky and whatever. And that person could be in front of you. That person can be on the phone. They could, however they're contacting you. You start to feel that, right? Like because they're running their programming. The fakes, smile then dial. What if I feel like crap today? Smile anyway. So they're running all their gimmicks because their teachers, maybe their boss or their manager or the sales trainer of the company or something has taught them the 10 things to do. So they're running that program.
So they're playing a role.
They're playing a role. They're not being themselves. They're not letting that freedom that Bruce would have talked about flow through them, being a genuine self. He was very much about being your genuine self as a martial artist, the true expression of a human being through whatever art they choose.
So for a sales rep, sir, what's the key to begin to understand what their genuine self is?
Well, the first thing is to really just be honest with yourself. How do I want to approach people? Why am I here? I mean, there's a lot of deeper questions. I mean, we can go down a rabbit hole, but I guess if you're selling for somebody else, the first question is, do I really believe in what I'm selling? A lot of people don't. They say, I came here because my friend told me the commissions are better here. The guy who says I can sell anything. Is the guy I run from him as fast as humanly possible.
Right.
Because they don't care about anything. So you would sell me poisoned baby water. Well, no, I wouldn't do that. But you just said you could sell anything. Well,
I've got limits.
Some don't. That's the whole problem.
I know, right?
A lot don't. How much are the commissions on poisoned baby water?
We'll have to look that up online.
Exactly. 75%.
So I think the lesson is, just if we have one key point here, is believe in what you sell, because then you're not putting on the act.
Right. You don't have to.
You don't have to.
And
that belief gets transmitted to the customer.
Gets transmitted to the customer. Why? Because you're at ease. If you're at ease, I mean, if you're going to sell, if you're selling something that you already believe in, it makes it that then 90% of your work is already taken off your shoulders, because a lot of it is just being quote unquote believable.
Sure. Okay. So for the sales reps that are out there, they're listening to the show in jobs, or they're sort of saying, okay, well, based on what Erik just said, yeah, I don't really believe in what I'm selling. They should be looking for something different.
They should. Well, first thing is, have you ever even asked yourself that question? Have you, why are you selling what you're selling? Do you really believe in it? Do you believe it's the best X in the world? If you had to pay money for it, would you pay money? Yeah. It's like, so Erik, you've got $50,000. Would you go buy, the best Hyundai possible? Or would you go buy, a nice BMW? I'm going for BMW. Hyundais are nice. They get you from A to B. But, what do I believe in? I believe in the BMW. Why? I know BMW as well. I believe in it. That's what I spend my money on. So if I was going to sell cars, I'd be selling BMWs, Aston Martins, something like that. So, you have to ask yourself that question first. Have you ever been asked, do I believe in it? If you not sure, can you find something in it that you believe in? Is there something, are you aligned with the energy, the purpose, the mission of the company you're with? If you are, well, then okay, then you can find integrity and alignment and congruency in that. But if you look in the mirror and you say, look, I really don't believe in what I'm selling. I'm only doing it for the money. No offense, but technically you're a prostitute. And if you're okay with that, all right, fine, but you have to live looking at yourself in the mirror every day, realizing I'm selling something, I'm doing something that goes against my personal integrity. That's a hard pill to swallow. And more importantly, you have to swallow it every single day you go to work.
And you have to put on an act and try to convince somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, the buyers, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's the G, Guru's selling system. We got through, it's an acronym, GURUS. We got through the first G. We're going to talk about U, unique sales persona. So describe what that means for us.
So years ago, when I first designed Gurus, unique sales persona was the construct through which people would start to do lead generation for themselves. Ultimately, it has spun out into what I call subconscious lead generation, or actually what is subconscious lead generation now, which is an entire process that we do for clients, but for the salesperson itself, or themselves. Unique sales persona was what I called the new USP. Because
unique selling proposition, in case people...
unique selling proposition. Because a lot of times, if you look at most today, everybody's like, "Oh, USP. What's your USP? What's your USP?" You know, it's everybody has heard the term USP. The problem is most people, you know, especially in a commoditized marketplace, they don't have a USP. Why? We can do what everybody else can do. We do it faster. That's what everybody else says. We do it cheaper. Everybody else says that. We do it better. Yes, everybody else. More experience. That's what everybody else says. You know, our combined 75,000 years of experience. You know?
Yeah, the fact is, everybody can do what you can do.
Right. So, you know, unique selling proposition becomes very difficult, and it becomes very blah. You know, it's not really anything that you can hang your hat on. Unique sales persona, on the other hand, makes you an interest, and that persona could be applied to a company, a product, or service, but let's talk about salespeople. It makes you an interesting human being. It makes you an interesting person. So what are you saying differently than other people? If you're not, there's nothing unique about you. You know, how do you think differently? What do you call yourself that's different? How do you approach people that's different? All these different, you know, what are the different ways you look at a problem that your competitors or your coworkers or whatever don't? What makes you unique in the way that you approach something? And you know, the easiest example I give people is like, you know, the Bruce Lee of sales, because a lot of times now when people go, they've melded the USP into the elevator pitch thing. Mm-hmm. You're in an elevator with the CEO of the company you definitely want to get into. You got 30 seconds. You ain't going to say jack. There's nothing you're going to say in 30 seconds that guy's going to be like, oh yeah, you know, okay, hey, Mr. Smith, blah, 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 I work for blah, 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 we offer blah, 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 we do better than blah, 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 blah. Doors open. The guy's like, get away from me.
Yeah. Pushing buttons in the elevator, trying to get off on an earlier floor.
Yes, any floor. I don't even work here, but I gotta get up. You know, and it's why, because it's all about attacking the person with verbiage in an attempt to get them to want what you've got. That's frontal assault, you know. That's not something that people want. You know, they don't want to be harassed. They want to be attracted. When you have a persona, a unique sales persona that attracts people, then all of a sudden you get into the conversation. So imagine getting on the elevator, you know, and it's like, you know, oh, hi, Mr. Smith. You're the CEO of ABC Corporation. Yes, I am. Well, that's a great place. You know, how long have you been doing that? Oh, I've been there 6 years. Okay, great. What'd you do before that? Oh, I did this and you ask them about that. They're going to say something. Eventually, going to say, "What's your name?" Oh, my name is Eric. Oh, okay, great. What do you do for a living? And that's where most people are. Who do you work for? What do you do? That's where most people are going to jump right into their USP. Right? They're going to go, "Well, I work for XYZ, and what we do is we're the standard bearer of this, and we won 45 awards doing that." You know, and here comes the, you know, elevator pitch / USP approach. But if you just say something like, in my case,
I'm the Bruce Lee of sales and lead generation.
Bruce Lee of sales and lead generation. And I stop.
Well, yeah. Well, of course, that's going to invite a further question.
What does that mean?
Exactly.
And that's it. There you go. You have now gotten exactly where you were hoping your verbal diarrhea was going to get you. Why? This guy's intrigued.
So if you're an individual rep working for a company selling somebody else's product, you're not an individual like yourself selling yourself, How do you come up with that unique sales persona?
So, so it can be I'm quiet because there's like 5 different ways to do it. I'm trying to compact everything into one. So you can go about, like, if you can use a different moniker, great. If your company is a stickler and they're like, no, you can't, you have to call yourself whatever, then when the person asks, what do you do? Instead of saying, I am a sales rep in the Eastern region for ABC company, you can find a different way to approach it. What do I do? I take the allergy out of server installations.
Mm-hmm.
What? That's all. Well, how sometimes you start using new servers, and I'm making this up as I go along, right? But you retool your IT infrastructure, and all of a sudden you put in a whole new bunch of servers, and it's like the computer system gets a cold, right? There's little hiccups here and sneezes there, and this stops working well. Well, yeah. But again, did I say I sell servers and I work for ABC company and no? I said what I take this sneeze out of whatever. So it's not a unique selling proposition in terms of trying to give you stats and numbers and whatever and shove stuff down your throat. It's saying just. There's a great movie with John Travolta. It was called Get Shorty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I forget what this is. This is going back, whatever, it's 20, 25 years ago. But there's a line in there where the guys, John Travolta's got to go talk to this other mobster or something to get him to do something. So his friend says to him, well, what you going to say to him? And he says, just what I have to, if that.
Right.
Or only what I have to, if that. Like, how little can you say to get the effect you desire? So what do I really want when I get in the elevator with Mr. CEO? Do I want him to be aware of what my company does? Or do I want him to be curious so I can put it into his context at his pace in a way that he enjoys because he wants more and more and more? Do I want him wanting when that door opens, or do I want him, quote unquote, educated?
Yeah.
That's all the difference.
Yeah. You want a question coming back at you.
Mm-hmm. So if I can make you curious and desirous, that's my job. Too many people have been told to, quote, educate the market as quickly as possible. Don't educate the market. Let them, as we know about education. If you look up the educare, I think what is the Latin or Greek origin or whatever of the word.
Well, you're very well educated.
Well, there you go. It doesn't mean to put in. It actually means to draw out.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Gosh,
and
I'll
yet
have to look that up.
When we're trying to educate our market, what are we trying to do? We're trying to shove stuff down their throat. What we're trying to do is what we need to do is to draw out their curiosity so that they then themselves ingrain in them why we are valuable. Because I can't make me valuable to you. I cannot, no matter how hard I try. Okay. Only you can make me valuable to you. How do you do that? As you learn yourself more about me, you will contextualize more about me and more of how I'm going to help you. And then you see the path to me working with you. And too many in sales today, we're taught to shove stuff down people's throats to get them to, respond to a certain question a certain way. And, that's that trigger that we know. Oh, come on. You know what I mean? That's putting human beings down to the level of an amoeba. If I poke it, I know it's going to split in two and do this. Come on. So I don't know.
It's all about people selling to people.
There you go, man. There you go. And I I grew up in Queens, so this is how. Come on, hey, what do you want?
Hey, forget about it.
Forget about it.
So the R then. So we've got the unique sales persona, which is a great tip. Is when people ask, "What do you do?" You don't give the elevator pitch or the corporate pitch. Mm-hmm. Come up with something that speaks in the context that they may understand, or as you said, with the great way you have with the Bruce Lee of sales that cause people to think, okay, well, I need to learn more about that. Mm-hmm.
All right. So next on the R in gurus is rapport building. So this is really a critical one. We see it more and more now as more sales is moving inside and being conducted virtually. That's one of the real barriers. Is, how does somebody that never meets somebody in person, how do they develop a rapport?
Gurus builds on itself. Every system I've ever designed, I've realized that systems, you have to have step one, then step two, then step three. It's kind of like, how do I fly the plane when I'm already barreling down the runway at 500 miles an hour? Like,
It's the wrong time to ask, right?
That's the wrong time to start, trying to figure these things out. There's trees coming. Okay. And the brakes aren't working. So these things have to build on each other. So, first, if you're your genuine self, the whole process starts to become easier and you're more relaxed in your own skin and you're not putting on airs. When people are interested in you, then all of a sudden the pay attention to me thing goes away. So you're relaxed. Somebody's intrigued by you. Now you can move into rapport naturally, right? So rapport building is getting on energetically the same page as the other person so that they feel comfortable with you. See, comfort is a very important thing. Am I comfortable with you as a person? If I'm not comfortable with you, do we buy things from people we're not comfortable with? From time to time we do. Why?
Rarely, though.
Rarely, but if we're sitting there and we've got, the pain in the butt, decision-making team, there's four of them, and the one guy is sitting there thinking like, I hate that sales rep. I can't stand him. I don't trust him. But the other three are like, well, mathematically it makes sense. They're 17% cheaper than everybody else, and they're going to give us 30% more of that, and the warranty is going to last longer. And so it's never a happy decision if you don't have rapport with the person. It's like worst case scenario decision. He's the best of the worst. So we're going to go with him. So rapport, on the other hand, is there's that feeling of like, this person knows me. This person resonates with me. I like them. I trust them. Even though I don't have 20 years of being a friend with this person, there's just that feeling like this person gets me. This person, I could trust this person or whatever. And the feeling that somebody gets you or they get your problem, they understand your situation is worth its weight in gold, because there's this, like, I don't have to explain this, then this, then this, then why this guy already gets it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think one of the things that you brought up that's key is you talk about how this builds on itself, is that if you are your genuine self, and one of the things about genuine self should be, I think a really critical thing that salespeople really miss, is that you have to believe that you are the equal of the person you're speaking with. Mm-hmm. So part of being your genuine self is being comfortable with the fact that you're not begging this person for business. You're not overwhelmed by the fact they finally gave you some time and you're all nervous about it. And they may have had some big title and so on, but hey, you're their equal. And part of being your genuine self is you're going to talk to that person as an equal. And I think that helps really build the rapport, because if you're talking to a decision maker and they think that you're a supplicant, then hey, that's a whole different relationship.
There's your multisyllabic word for the day, folks. Supplicant.
Supplicants. That's what we had. Don't forget, you brought up educate and the way it derived from Latin. So
there you go.
I was just taking a cue from you.
I appreciate that. So for those of you out there, it's Smarty Pants Day for all of us here.
That's right.
All of us chickens. But yeah. I mean, a key thing is to, like you said, is to be the equal of the person. The moment you have rapport with somebody, instantly the playing field is leveled. And that's a key thing. You can be the guy on the street with a sign begging for quarters, and the CEO of a $20 billion corporation can be walking by you. But if you two can build rapport, all of the money and the material things goes away, because at the end of the day, all human beings are equal. Strip us all naked, take away, when you take everything away from a human being, what have you got left? You got a naked people. So we are all equal. Some people might have more stuff, or they might have a job title that's technically higher than yours or something on some org chart. But in reality, all human beings are equal. So rapport building is partially, that resonance, but it's also partially, and that feeling of connection, but it's also that eliminating those artificial barriers that exist between humans.
Mm-hmm.
Because how much your car costs and how much my car costs. I got my $25,000 car and you're driving around a $125,000 car. So that doesn't change the grade of human being that either of us is. And so getting rid of those barriers, building that rapport, resonating with each other, feeling like this person gets me. As a matter of fact, when you feel like somebody else gets you, that is it. You know that all of your perceived barriers are gone.
Right.
You can't put the wall. It's not even you can't even put the walls up, because this person is right next to me energetically. I can't defend against this person anymore. More importantly, I don't want to.
Right.
And that's the joy of rapport.
Excellent. Okay, so we've worked our way through 3 of the 5 letters in the acronym GURUs. Fortunately, we're going to have to step away to the last segment of our show, but we're going to let Erik tell you in just a few minutes where you can find out more about the GURUs selling system. So, Erik, now in the last segment of the show, I've got standard questions I ask all my guests.
Okay.
And the first one is a scenario that I pose to everyone, and you're the star of the show.
Yeah.
You've just been hired as a new sales leader at a company whose sales have stalled out, and they desperately want to get unstuck. So what 2 things could you do in your first week on the job that would have the biggest impact?
Well, the first thing I do, if I brought in a sales leader, is I'm going to go to what comes before sales, lead generation. What are we doing for lead generation? And that's the first thing I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And is it up to marketing, or is it up to sales? Did I make the mistake of working for one of those companies that gives marketing an unlimited budget and tells them to go have fun at the trade shows and do whatever, and bring back your fishbowl of useless cards, while sales actually has to, produce leads? Or, am I at a smart company where marketing actually produces leads? So that's the first thing I'm going to look at. The second thing I'm going to look at is, okay, if lead generation is working properly, what's happening in the sales process? How are we converting people? So if we've got, and there's any number of problems, we might be getting a lot of quote unquote leads, but then we get, partway through the process with them and we realize they're not qualified. So do I have a really good disqualification process in place so that, people are not wasting our time? If they're qualified, then, what's the next step in the process? Is it talking to somebody, or should we be giving them more, putting them into, a video process or a white paper process or something to segregate them more, that you should be on that list, you should be in this list, you should be being handled by that people, those people, these people, et cetera. What is the real sales process funnel from beginning to end? I want to see every inch of it. I want to know where we're losing people, and as soon as you know where you're losing people, that's where you can investigate and that's where you can improve. And it should be, and as soon as you've fixed one hole, you should start to see improvement in everything that comes after it. And you just go down your funnel, fixing all the holes until the water's flowing through it perfectly.
All right. Great answer. Love it. So got some other questions for you, rapid fire questions. You can give me 1-word answers or you can elaborate. So when you, Erik, are out selling, what's your most powerful sales attribute?
My most powerful sales attribute, I would say, oh God, my eyes. No, usually just
that's a first.
There you go. In terms of if I'm talking to people, it's usually the moniker. The Bruce Lee of sales and lead generation.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Who's your sales role model?
Who is my sales role model? Buddha. I've got a lot of guys. I mean, in my industries and stuff that I've done, I love guys like Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, early stuff. It's kind of like when you talk about rock and roll, like U2 before Rattle and Hum. No.
That's okay. You can make it generationally relevant.
But guys who really attract people, like a Howard Stern. My sales role models are human beings, and they don't have to be in sales. Matter of fact, most of them aren't.
Sure.
Human beings who naturally attract other people. Because when you can attract other people naturally, the whole idea of, having to have years and years and years of sales training and sales skill goes out the window. Why? Because if you're naturally attracting people, naturally interesting people, and naturally helping people, then that's it. You're a sales god.
Right. The power of the genuine self. So, third question is, what's one book besides your own that every salesperson should read?
Wow. One book beside my own that every salesperson should read.
Doesn't need to be a sales book either.
I know. Since I'm a big advocate of lead generation, I would probably say, high on my hit list. You know what? I'm gonna change my answer. I was about to go one direction. I'm going to change my answer. So I study neurolinguistic programming. We could spend an hour and a half talking about just N, but NLP. There is a book, The User's Manual for the Brain. That's basically the first course of NLP in a book form. It is an incredible read so that you can start to see how the human mind, the subconscious mind, responds. It's great, and it's great for virtually any type. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do in a business setting. It could be sales, operations, management, whatever. You interact with human beings. It is a fantastic way to see, A, how your mind works, so that you can have better understanding of what you do, but it also how other people respond to you. So actually, I think if I was going to recommend a book that everybody should read just to read, that would be the book to read.
All right. Sounds good.
Other than mine.
Other than yours, of course. The Be-Do Sale, which I always want to call the Doobie-Doo Sale, but that's never mind. Anyway, so last question for you. What's on your playlist right now? What music's on your playlist?
Oddly enough, I'm not much on listening to music a lot in the car. I'm one of these guys who listens to a lot to books on tape kind of thing. But I have my headset that when I work out and stuff like that. So it's a mix of any really energetic music that I relate to. So it'll be like early In Excess music or Aerosmith, again from a lot of 80s stuff, In
Excess, that'll be a send people back checking.
Exactly. Scorpions, Guns N' Roses, lots of old AC/DC, stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
AC/DC was after nearly 200 interviews now. AC/DC is pretty close to the top of the list. So
there you go.
All right,
stuff that energizes me.
All right, appreciate it. Well, good. Well, Erik, thanks for joining me today, and tell folks how they can find out more about you and Gurus Selling.
Well, the easiest way is there's two ways. I mean, you can go to guruselling.com. That's GURU selling.com. So GURU selling.com. That's our website. And you can also, if you want to check me out on LinkedIn, just Google my name, Erik. Last name is Luhrs. As far as I know, I'm the only Erik Luhrs on LinkedIn. So you should, and I'm certainly the only one who's the Bruce Lee of sales. I
was going to say, if somebody searches Bruce Lee on LinkedIn, what do they find?
Well, you'll find a lot of folks in China, believe it or not.
Okay.
But there are a few folks who go, wow, I really love your profile, and then all of a sudden they become the Bruce Lee of greeting cards or something next day, and I have long conversations with them, like, yeah, I appreciate, they say, whatever, the imitation is a serious form of flattery, but copying is just cheap.
Right.
So model me, don't copy me.
Exactly. All right. Well, good. Well, again, thanks for being on the show. And remember, friends, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And one easy way to do that is to make this podcast accelerate a part of your daily routine, listening in on your commute, in the gym, or make it part of your morning sales meeting. That way you won't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Erik Luhrs, the Bruce Lee of sales, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.